everyone.
Uh,
We'll give you a couple seconds to trickle in and get your audio connected. Welcome to the first session of the amazing Connected Emotion Spurring Slipstream. It's really fun to see you all like load up on the screen. We've got three rows in a bit. And we were just saying we have a pretty high number of participants. So I'm going to ramble just for a little bit, just to allow people to come in, because we know people are coming from the opening welcome session and are hopping into our room. So first of all, I'll give you a little introduction. My name is Tina Sartori, and I have worked with Connected Emotion for a number of years, helping to facilitate Slipstreams in person and online. And hopefully those in-person ones, we're going to actually get to them this year, which is pretty exciting. But the one thing we learned with a virtual Slipstream is that it allowed many people to join us from literally all over the world. So welcome from wherever you are sitting. I wish I was at a beach. I am not, but it makes me feel like pretty soon I'll be able to be there. I'm your room captain for this session. So I'll kind of let you know how things are going to flow. We also have Marcel Plug on the call. He is our tech support.
Hello.
Well, Marcel also looks professional because he has the best microphone on. That's why he's our tech guy, so you know. And, our main event tonight is Sam Tallman, and he is joining us from the Pacific Northwest. But he's actually sort of been a little bit all over the place. But that's where he is residing from. And you are joining us to hear him talk about diabetes and meditation, reality as diabetes reveals it to us. And Sam is going to do a presentation for us. He's got a really great set of slides to share with us and some practice he's also going to do with us, which is super exciting. If you have questions for Sam as he's moving through his presentation, you can put them in the chat box. If you wouldn't mind putting them as a direct message to me. So that way we're going to keep track of them all so we don't lose them. So if you have a question for Sam, pop it in there directly to me, and we'll get to those closer to the end of the session. There is also a riddle. I know, super exciting. This is new. And we're going to get to that riddle at the end of the session. So if I'm almost done rambling at the end, you're like, Tina, the riddle. Throw it in the chat box so I don't forget. So without further ado,
the secret dibs on getting the riddle first, right?
Sam, it is all yours.
Okay, lovely. It's so nice to see everybody and like lots of familiar faces, which is also sweet, and also sweet to see unfamiliar faces. It's nice to meet you guys, and hope to have more time to chat as the session goes on. Cool. Well, let me just go right into sharing my slides. Give me just a moment here. All right. All right, you guys are seeing my slides? Cool. And you're not seeing my secret notes? Okay, great. Okay, so perhaps a little bit of a mysterious title, and I'm curious over the course of the session. I hope to hear from everybody. There's some different ways that we'll have some interaction, but I would also be curious to hear what this means to you, even what the title means to you. Clearly, for most of you, it was at least moderately intriguing to understand this. You know, what is it that reality, or that diabetes tells us about reality, or it might be trying to tell us. But even before that, I really just wanted to ask everybody, what brought you to this session, or why are you here? And to that effect, everybody can feel free to share in the chat, but I also have this really cool way of sharing called Poll EV. I don't know if you all have done Poll EV before, but I'm actually going to share some instructions. And the cool part of responding on Poll EV is that we're all going to see each other's responses, and that we're all going to see them on a word cloud together. So the question really is just, what brought you to this session? Or why are you here? A few moments. And let me know if that works for you. That's a URL that you should be able to go to and give a response. And feel free to unmute and say if it's not working also. I tried to test it out earlier. I think it was, but... Cool. All right, and I'm going to start sharing the word cloud. Is everyone seeing this? Cool. Whoa, big insight. Is that everybody seeing this word cloud? Yeah? Cool.
Yes, we can see it.
Lovely. Moment. Wonderful. New curiosity. Love that curiosity spelled with a U also. I feel like that would be extra big if it was all together. Wonderful. I think this is a really great start. So I just wanted everybody to have that moment to share and see some of the reasons that we're all here. And each of us has a different reason, but also we share a lot. So let me come back to the presentation here. Okay. So this quote for me really touches a deep place, and you might not resonate with the word prayer or this kind of sense of a friendly presence that this quote is maybe referring to. But what this is really about is just saying, be clear about what we really most deeply need and want, and make sure that we orient our life to make sure that our mind, which is so much bigger than just our conscious mind, is also orienting in that way. So I think it's really wonderful to start this way of like, why are we all here together? And just really know that. And hopefully we can orient towards seeing that through. I also just want to say, I said this last year at the Slipstream, but I'm tickled again this year. Often we think of meditation as the opposite of motion, which is problematic sometimes for those of us who have tried to meditate and found that we have very busy minds, and that can be very stressful. But I love that this event and this community, this organization is called Connected in Motion, because for me, that is what the meditation practice is really about. It's about paying attention, about being connected to the constant motion that's going on in our bodies and minds and outside of them. And that motion is happening whether we're sitting down or lying down. And I think those of us with diabetes are probably more aware of that than many people. So I hope that this session is an opportunity to look at meditation from this new perspective, from this perspective of it being about being connected in motion. Okay, so why is there a fox on the screen? And yes, that is a fox on the screen. So I'll say a little bit. I asked you all why you're here, and I'll say a little bit about why I'm here. But actually, first, before we get to the fox, I think let's practice a minute. So we'll just do 2-3 minutes of practice, and all that means is just get comfortable wherever you are, comfortable seat that you can hold relatively still in for the next few minutes. And as it feels appropriate, you can let your eyes come to rest. They might be closed or they might just be softened. You have a sense of the structure of your body, the weight of your body being pulled downward by gravity. Just endeavor to open your ears fully. Notice the coming and the going of sound, the movement of sound. And noticing the way that it's easier to pay attention when the sound starts, and as it slips away, our mind fills the space. But seeing if for a moment you can just hold that open space that's left when the sound of the bell leaves. And notice the process of the mind moving back in to fill it back up. And for just a few seconds, see if you can just count how many thoughts happen. Just be curious and see if you can count how many thoughts occur the next 20 or 30 seconds. Just letting your mind come to rest one more time with the bell softening. And as you feel ready over the course of the next 20, 30 seconds, feeling free to return to the screen. Taking your time. Just out of curiosity, if anybody did have a count of how many thoughts happened in those 20 or 30 seconds, feel free to put it in the chat. It'd be interesting to see what people say. There's no right or wrong answer. Yeah, a lot of activity going on. Yeah, interesting. So not only were there many, but there were so many coming so quickly that great question, Christine, and I think it does. Very insightful, Bree. Yeah. yeah, in one sense, it's a silly task to quantify, but in another sense, it's just a little exercise to allow us to orient to what's happening. Just to notice that we lose count after 8 or 10 thoughts is in and of itself an exercise. So, okay, so I said I'd say why I'm here. As far as why I'm here, it relates to a story from the Zen tradition, which is where I primarily practice. And as you might guess from this picture, it is a story about a fox, perhaps the same fox pictured in the slide. And so I'll give a shortened version of the story. Here's more or less how it goes. For a time, when Zen Master Hyakujo delivered Zen lectures, an old man attended them, unseen by most of the monks. At the end of each talk, when the monks left, so did he. But one day he remained after they had gone, and the Zen master asked him, "Who are you?" The old man replied, "I'm not a human being." Pretty spooky start, if you ask me. Eons ago, I was a Zen master and lived on this mountain. At that time, one of my students asked me whether the awakened person is subject to the laws of cause and effect. And we can think of cause and effect in this case as like the ups and downs of the world and the unpredictable nature of the world. In this case, it's a translation of the word karma, which many of us have heard before. So he says, he's asked whether an awakened person is subject to the laws of cause and effect, the ups and downs of the world. And the mysterious old man continues, I answered him, the awakened person is not subject to cause and effect. And for this answer, I was reborn as a fox for 500 lives, and I'm still actually a fox. So this point in the story, you might be like, okay, well, what's the problem with that answer? And this is getting a little esoteric. For me, sitting with this, and this might become clear as I say the second part of the story, but as I sit with this, I really feel that part of what he's saying is, if we were really to fully figure this thing out, if we could see it all, whether it was with diabetes or with something else, wouldn't we make every right choice and avoid all of the terrible possible situations that life sometimes brings to us? Couldn't we avoid the blood sugar spike if we truly knew how many carbs were in what we were eating or how our body is responding to insulin? Or perhaps we could at the very least avoid the rage bolusing that might happen later when we miss the mark. So this is kind of the assumption that if we knew everything, we'd be good to go, no problems. But this guy was turned into a fox because of that, so clearly it wasn't satisfactory. So then the old man intensely looks at Zen Master Hyakujo and he says, I beg you to give me the turning words to end my struggle of living as a fox. Is the awakened person subject to cause and effect, to these ups and downs of life? And Hyakujo says, the awakened person does not ignore the laws of cause and effect. And at the words of Hyakujo, the old fox man was set free. And the way that I feel reading this story and reflecting on it is that at those words, to some extent, I kind of felt like I was set free too. After I'd spent a few days just practicing and reflecting on this story, and this little exchange, there was a moment, a kind of instant that for me, I had this flash of the fact that I'd been living with diabetes as if I could be free of the ups and downs if I just figured it out, or if I just got it right. And I was really denying the appropriateness or acceptability or the okayness of my own struggling with living with type 1 diabetes, and compartmentalizing it. And the assumption of that being that, you know, if it was hard, if things didn't go right, that it was my fault. And if something went wrong, it's because I wasn't precise enough. in a single moment, reflecting on this after quite some time, I kind of felt all of those assumptions start to evaporate, at least for a little while. So that's kind of why I'm here. That was a big moment for me, and led me to want to come back and bring the good news to the diabetes community and share more and see, who else is reflecting in this way. And many people who are on this call are people that I have continued to share with over the last few years in such a lovely way. And that's been such a pleasure. Specifically, lots of people from the Diabetes Sangha community. So shout out to you guys. There's another more simple story that doesn't involve magic and foxes and karma and rebirth, that comes from the time of the Buddha. And one way that he used to tell a kind of similar thing is that we're living in this constant situation where we're hit by this dart, and the dart hurts, and the dart could potentially be deadly. And so often after we get hit with this first dart, we have any range of extremely ineffective responses to this first dart. We might say, "Oh, there's no dart that hit me. What are you talking about?" Completely ignore it. Or we might say, "Who did this? I need to figure out who's to blame for this dart." And we go try to figure out somebody to get angry with. Or we start getting really sad and we're like, "Oh, this is the worst thing ever. There's a dart and I'm dying." And meanwhile, all we needed to do, and so we're sitting here, and as we're sitting here, we get hit by a second dart. And really the second dart is our own ineffective responses. It's the way that we make life harder for ourselves. And all we needed to do is pull out the dart and seek some medical attention, perhaps, or take care of ourselves. And so this is maybe another simpler way of talking about it. It doesn't include magic. So, okay, we're going back to Pull EV. And that seemed to work pretty well last time. So I'm going to open up another one. Pretty simple question that's on the screen. I would love for people to just answer this question, but don't answer it yet. I'll put in the chat again the right link. And let me activate also my Pull EV. It's one of the problems with having an unlimited number of tabs open at one time. It actually makes it quite difficult to find the tab that you're looking for. All right. Apologies. Okay. So if you've got your response already, what makes this so hard? You may respond now. And I'm going to put the link in the chat again. All right, here we go. Let me pull this up so I can share it with everyone. Yeah. This is a powerful list. I don't know that there's much for me to say about it. I think it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. I'd love to just take a few moments and have everybody just check in. How is it to read this list? I'm sure it brings up a couple different things. For me, it's hard to read a list like this, especially because I identify with it. Also really nice to know that you're not alone. I'm feeling that too right now. Yeah. Just take a moment to sit with that. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Big words mean isolation, draining, different. One that I read early on that sparked something interesting for me was incurable. And chaos is another interesting one. There's a lot here. All right. So let's reflect on some of these words that we just saw a moment ago, and we'll have another just short practice opportunity right now. You might know what word you put in. And so if you're comfortable right now, you can just take a moment to let your eyes come to rest again. Find a comfortable seat. First, just reflect on the word that you put in. We can reflect on it with our mind and be spun out by all of our thoughts. And it's okay if we have a lot of thoughts going on, but let's instead pay attention to the area right around where we can imagine or feel our heart is. And breathe for a moment as if directly in and out of the heart, as if it wasn't going through your nose or mouth, but straight in and straight out of the heart. Reflect on this word, the word that you put in, for a moment. For me, it's a little bit painful to reflect on that word. When we inhale, I just encourage everybody to actually welcome in this uncomfortable or hard experience. That might be the word that you put in. And as we exhale, as if exhaling straight from the heart, exhaling with a wish that it gets a little bit easier, that it's not so hard. It's not such a struggle. So we might inhale just with this one word and exhale just with the wish that it's a little bit easier, that we struggle less. Inhale after exhale, exhale after inhale. Just turning over between welcoming this difficult experience and hoping for some resolution or ease. And then, having spent a little time doing that, seeing if you can recall some of the other words that stuck out to you on that word cloud. And inhaling those too, and the experience of the people who wrote those, who are all here right now together. And when you inhale, inhaling in the difficulty that each of us brings with diabetes. And exhaling out the wish that it's easier, not just for you, but for everyone else too. It's okay if you're having lots of thoughts pulling at your attention or bothering you. Just continuing to drop into the area around your heart and breathing right from there. Just sincerely welcoming, sincerely wishing on inhale and on exhale. And we'll expand that even further to now inhale for all people who have diabetes or are affected by type 1 diabetes. Inhaling for all of these people. Welcoming, saying that there is a space for their discomfort, their struggle on the inhale. And on the exhale, wishing as if you could make it come true just with your sincerity and force of will. Exhaling the wish that gets easier for everyone. Leaving that aside for a moment. Taking the opportunity to just listen to the room around you, forgetting about any special breathing or technique or practice. Just listen a moment. And just breathe normally for a moment. And when you feel ready, you can make some small movements and take some fuller breaths and come back once again more fully to the screen. Mm. It's a very stereotypical meditation teacher thing of me to ring the bell after the meditation. Normally I don't do that. All right. So for me, it feels clear that practices like these, like the two that we've done so far, are important, and that maybe bringing a different perspective to life with diabetes is important. And perhaps that's not for everybody. That feels quite clear for me. I also feel that sometimes it feels like everything in life with diabetes is a little bit harder. Even the really simple things. It's like Driving is a little bit harder if your blood sugar is off. Going to the grocery store, oh man, don't even get me started. Going to the grocery store with a low blood sugar, terrible, terrible, terrible. If you've never done it before, good for you. And other examples abound. So normally I think we think in this way that for the most part, most of life is harder with diabetes. And I think that's probably true. One thing that I've found practicing for the last few years and practicing deeply is that all of a sudden it feels like the learning that I have had just from living with diabetes has kind of put me at an advantage. And actually helped me see some things about life that are true for everybody, and that most people don't have the opportunity to see and struggle as a result. And so I imagine most of these probably you all will agree with. I'm also open to dissent. But things that we often think about diabetes, well, we've certainly covered this one. Tough, uncomfortable, unfair, painful. I think that's pretty straightforward. Chaos was one of the words that stuck out to me the most in that word cloud earlier. And I think that's part of what makes diabetes so hard, is that it's always changing. No formula quite works for very long. And so it's in motion. And even on a day-to-day or second-to-second basis, blood sugar always changing dramatically sometimes. And then the fact that it's not just one thing that we have to do, but it's kind of everywhere and everything. It's integrated with the rest of our lives. So it's not just 2 hours a day that we have to struggle and take care of our diabetes, but the rest is all good. It doesn't quite matter. It's going to be everywhere. It's wherever we go, because it is our life. And what I have found just mind-breaking in a positive way, mind-blowing, I think is the way that normal people usually say that phrase, is that in thinking about meditation, in thinking about, mindfulness practice in particular, and the various forms that it's taken and the historical roots of mindfulness practice, it's actually assumed that life is hard and uncomfortable, and that there's nothing wrong with us for feeling stressed or feeling bad. And that just in and of itself, I think we don't often appreciate enough. To just say, oh, wait a second, there's actually nothing wrong. I'm stressed right now. I feel bad right now. This sucks right now. And that's okay. It's actually completely normal. It's a normal part of life. And those of us with diabetes deal with that more and hopefully become more adept at handling that if we're paying attention. One of the other kind of fundamental assumptions of practice, and specifically these practices that are in modern times thought of as mindfulness practice, is that everything is constantly in motion. It's not just our diabetes. We, of course, are much more aware of our diabetes being in motion. But even all of these things that we're not so aware of are constantly changing. And so often when we hold on to this idea of the fact that things are going to stay the same, we find pretty big disappointments in our life, or that things are stable in some way and that we can assume we know what's coming next. And so this is the next part of the kind of overlap between living with diabetes and learning from diabetes and mindfulness practice. And the last piece just being that naturally, actually, it's not only diabetes that comes with us everywhere we go, but it's every single thing and every single part of our life and everything leading up to our life and the lives of those that we interact with. It's all deeply interwoven. And so we have this often painful experience of diabetes seeping into everything, but that's actually just a continuation of the fact that that's always the case. It's the case for the great things that we experience, like a lovely smile to a stranger in the street, or having a nice hug with a loved one, or a nice cuddle with an adorable dog. There's an adorable little dog here that I'm looking at. So I also am thinking about that right now. So that also comes with us everywhere we go, just like diabetes. But we are much more aware naturally, it completely makes sense, of the fact that diabetes is coming with us everywhere we go. So there's this overlap. And I think I'll be curious to hear how that lands later on. But I imagine that at least intellectually that makes sense for most people. And so really my question then is, okay, so you get it, but it's not really about what you get or think. It's more really about what you experience and feel. And so often we can come to this idea of how things are, and yet we're still really struggling with the way things are because we have these old patterns. We have these old ways of relating to the hardship in our life. And so that's where practice comes in. And that's where, in this case, it could be mindfulness practice. It could be another kind of practice as well. But that's where this kind of working towards how we orient to difficulty comes in, and working over time, because it takes time. We've built up these patterns over quite a while. So with that in mind, I'd love to do one last practice, and hopefully you're not getting too tired of settling into your seat and letting your eyes come to rest and finding a comfortable structure for a few minutes. But if you are, that's okay, because this is the last time we're doing it. So start the way we started the first practice. Just paying attention to the pull of gravity on our body. You can almost feel it as if it's pulling you from the waist or from the tailbone down to the center of the earth. Because that is really pretty close to what's happening. You might notice the kind of outline of our body, outlined by our skin and the clothes on top of it. And taking a moment to be aware of what's going on beneath the skin in particular. Let's orient first to that area around the heart we have already paid some attention to. Just really patiently watch that area, listen to that area. What can be felt? For me, I feel heartbeat, some warmth, some weird other sensations that are hard to put into words, some kind of movement. We might drop our attention down to our solar plex at the bottom of our ribs, or if we feel comfortable, towards the area around our stomach or lower belly. This is often an area of a lot of judgment for many of us, so if that's not feeling comfortable, feeling free to stay around the heart area, noticing the whole body. But resting our attention here in this lower belly or stomach area, again, what can be felt here? You may be feeling other things I'll just share. I feel some of these visceral sensations, maybe stomach turning, maybe abdominal muscles moving, my breath, temperature changes. just resting and watching and listening to this area another moment. And let's now bring the attention all the way up towards the throat. Similar process, same process. Completely relaxed. What can we feel there? For me, it's a little easier than for you all because I'm talking, so I feel my throat moving. But just holding it still. What movement is there? What change? Lastly, bringing the attention up as if inside of your head, as if it's inside of your skull. What can be felt there? Staying in the practice just a few more moments. Let your attention move freely wherever it wants to go within the confines of your skin, below your skin. And particularly, allow yourself to notice things that are uncomfortable physically. For me, my shoulders are quite uncomfortable and my back hurts a little bit. See if you can just patiently rest your attention there for a moment, not react to it. Or notice your reaction to it. Maybe there's words, maybe there's a feeling of wanting to move. Maybe you have certain ideas or memories about why certain things are uncomfortable. Just allowing yourself to notice all of this. No judgment. And let's just drop that for a moment. Letting your mind freely roam wherever it wants for a few just free, open moments. All right. On your own time, coming on back. No meditation bell this time. You're welcome. So, I'm noticing the time, and I'm getting towards the end of the presentation part, but there are one or two other things I wanted to just briefly cover. So, without rushing, we can move more swiftly. I've been guiding a few practices today, but in general, the kind of foundations, you could say, of how to practice on your own are actually pretty simple, and you could do them doing a lot of different things. It doesn't only need to be sitting down for meditation. First thing is just setting an intention, which is not only what you want to do, Say, for example, pay attention to your breath or to a sound. That might be part of the intention. But often a part that we leave out is how we want to do it. So there's what we want to do, but perhaps more important here is how we want to go about it. And we could think about curiosity as an interesting way to go about noticing things about our experience. Or we could think about just being non-judgmental, or being caring, or being kind, or being gentle. Gentle is one that I often like to sit with. Or strong. We might choose to sit in a strong way or do something in a strong way. The next, which I think gets sometimes too much focus, is attention. Of course, we all know that it's important to pay attention if we're meditating on something in particular. But we often get so focused on this that we think that mindfulness is an attentional exercise. And there's, unfortunately, I'm also a researcher, and there's unfortunately lots of research that kind of suggests that mindfulness is an attentional exercise. And it does require our attention, but it's not an attentional exercise. More than anything, it's an intentional exercise. So we still do have attention, though. We want to be paying attention to something in particular. And then the last one is retention, which is maybe a stretch of that word, or a slightly silly use of that word. But in this case, it just means we come back over and over. And so what we're retaining is the practice. And this often also gets left out because we think, okay, well, I'm supposed to just stay so focused on whatever it is that I'm being mindfully aware of. And of course, if I'm perfect at it, I'll be paying attention to it the entire time. But of course, this is not the way the mind works. And so we constantly are slipping off of it. So we want to include this idea of, yeah, of course we're going to slip off of it. And then we just come back, attention, over and over. And that's central to the practice, however we're doing it. Also, if there was a fourth one, I would say no tension. The important thing here being that other than me trying to find an opportunity to slip in a joke, and I saw at least one person laugh, thank you, Mark, it is also very important for us to recognize how much tension we're bringing to our practice, because often we do have a sense of wanting to achieve. And we come and we're like, I'm going to achieve a state of calm, or I'm going to achieve a state of deep focus, or something else. And we bring all of that in, and we bring lots of tension and expectations, which aren't helpful. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from a probably 6th century Chinese Zen master, Senkan. And his words are translated as, obey your own nature. And that's kind of what we're doing in steps 1, 2, 3. Intention, attention, retention. Obey your own nature, and you will walk freely and undisturbed. When thought catches you, the truth is hidden, for everything is murky and unclear, and the burdensome practice of judging brings annoyance and weariness. The burdensome practice of judging brings annoyance and weariness. I think sometimes we think of judging as a immoral thing to do, but maybe rather than an immoral thing to do, we can just think of it as, man, that is really burdensome and not something I want to be doing. It's really draining. I don't have energy for that. Certainly not with myself, and certainly not in my meditation practice. So I'll briefly just slide through this little part that I had. Of course, I'm also a researcher, so I have this science brain, and I'm always wanting to share all the cool science stuff. We could talk about this after, or if somebody wants to ask questions about it, we could talk about that too. But I made this fun little diagram. I've been told that I make diagrams that are too busy. That's what my thesis advisor recently told me. So apologies if this comes off that way. But there's so many cool things, and this really is the tip of the iceberg as far as what is known about the impact of meditation practices. We know that it changes the way that people's brains react while they're sleeping over the course of time. And just that generally, it's often used in cases of insomnia with a lot of effectiveness. We know that even meditating for 10 minutes on well-wishing for other people leads people to rate that they feel much more closely connected to strangers that they're put in a room with. That's mind-blowing to me. We also know that the more that we're able to pay attention to our own bodies, the more sensitive we are to other people's feelings. Also, in a way, not surprising, but just miraculous. There's lots around stress and pain, which is, I don't even know what to say about it, quite frankly. I mean, there's so much there, just that we process stress and pain differently, and ultimately have less of it because we're spending less time letting that second dart hit us or hitting ourselves with a second dart. And then something that can't really be quantified and hardly can be spoken to is these larger transformative experiences that meditation practices and other intentional ways of living can lead us to. And there's lots of cool work being done that really highlights that, but that can't even really be quantified. And I think it's part of our human experience that we're often searching for something in this light, searching for something more, or searching for something different or more meaningful that we know is supposed to be part of our experience. And then there's also lots of cool stuff on attention and memory. Are we going to do this one more experiment? No, we'll save the experiment for another time. I'm seeing the time. We'll do the experiment another time. But here's your homework. That can be the experiment. Your homework is pay some attention to your body. You could do a guided meditation, and I'll maybe put up some resources about that. But spend a few minutes paying attention to your body and have your blood sugar monitor closely at hand. For me, I use a CGM, so it's quite easy. All I have to do is take a look. And after you spend a few minutes doing that and really feeling what's going on in my body, as soon as you open your eyes, without leaving your sense of your body, actually go and take a look. Either test your blood sugar manually or take a look at your CGM. So that's your take-home homework. I can say more about that later again too. Okay. So this is an extremely overused quote from Lao Tzu, but I couldn't help but include it because I think it's wonderful, and I think we can get ahead of ourselves, thinking about what might be ahead and getting good at something, getting good at meditation or something like this. And really, all we want to do is just take a small step. And so if we're thinking about this in terms of walking or taking steps, I've put a few good practices for this kind of walking. Starting really small, very small commitments, even if it's just saying, I'm only going to do 2 minutes a day, but having it be regular, such that it is a day, every day, 2 or 3 minutes. Finding other people to walk with, and I'll say more about this, but I've already mentioned the Diabetes Sangha. That's one amazing resource. There's other people to practice with as well. There's other places to practice, but this is very important to have other people to share with and be in community with in this process. And then learning a little bit about where you're walking. So there's lots of cool resources to read, books to read. There's lots of cool talks. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on podcasts. There's lots to learn about. And that intellectual learning isn't practicing, but it can be helpful for the practice. And then being careful of our expectations. We talked a little bit about that. I put here a chronic case of the tomorrows, which I think speaks for itself, but so often we're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. I want to start doing that. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And so rather than saying that, really just going back to step one, which is how small can I make it? How small can I make my commitment such that I could do it today? Could be 60 seconds of just paying attention to my breath. Cool, you did it. Great. You've now gotten past your chronic case of tomorrows. So, last one is maybe a more nuanced comment. The feeling of should is maybe something to be careful about, especially because we come to practice wanting something to change. And when we have the idea that something in particular should be changing, that can be a little bit dangerous and lead us down a path of discomfort, more discomfort. Okay. I'm also going to put in the chat here, there's a little Google Doc that I made with different links or different resources for beginners. All right. So that's in the chat here too, but I have some of those resources up here. And me and a number of other wonderful people who are on this call right now are constantly practicing at the Diabetes Sangha. And so that's definitely a resource to look up. All right. And this is my question slide. And I'm actually going to hop off the slides so I can see everybody more easily. I know I don't have much time. Team Captain Tina, I'm so sorry.
No, please don't apologize. I just want to add on to your, so when I started, I'm in Canada, so my blood sugars are in millimoles. And so when we started the session, and the funny part is I already told Sam one other story where meditation helped to bring my blood sugars down. I started at 13 and I'm now down to 11. So even just having some mindful moments, I find it super interesting how it can have an impact in other ways. And I don't have, my bolus from dinner is long gone. So super interesting. Sam, I want to thank you for being with us tonight and sharing some of your practice and giving us the opportunity to have some quiet moments together. It was really nice. And I didn't sing your praises at the beginning of the session. So I want everyone to know about all the amazing work that you do.
Oh, wait, don't even do it. Just.
Can't I? Okay, can I say this? So as Sam mentioned, he is a researcher and he does a lot of work with mindfulness and meditation in the areas of neuroscience, psychology, and public health. And if you want to know more about the work that Sam does, you can find him at secondcocoon.com, or he's actually willing for you to email him. So Sam, be careful what you wish for, but samtellman@gmail.com. You can always reach out that way as well. So again, Sam, thank you so much for being with us tonight and kicking off our Slipstream. Thank you to all of you and giving us the gift of your time tonight. It was really wonderful to start off our weekend with this session tonight. Thank you, Marcel, for keeping us rolling. And I know you've all been waiting for this riddle. Mm-hmm. So here it is. I have to be honest, I don't know what happens with all these riddles, but here you go. So, bikes in the Tour de France or geese flying in a V? What is that? So that answer, you need to hang on to it, write it down somewhere, keep it in mind. Do we need a hint? Put your hands up if you want a hint, if you don't think you have the answer to this riddle. Okay, the hint is the name of this event. So write that down, starts with an S, ends with a stream, maybe starts with a slip. You're
making this too easy, Tina.
So there will be a full kickoff to Slipstream tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. So we hope to see all of you there. I'm gonna send you off with a little poem. If you have not read this book yet, this is Carrie Sparling's Rage Bolus, and it's a book of poems about diabetes, and some things are super hysterical. And because of the time, these are the thoughts I'm going to leave you with. Now I lay me down to sleep. We all know my pump will beep. So if I'm low before I wake, This apple juice is what I'll take. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you on Friday.
Good night. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everybody. See y'all soon.
Take care.
And please do email me with any questions. I'm sorry I went so far over.
Oh, no, not at all. It was great.
Mm.